Hello. Hello. I can't see who is here yet, but I do see that people are here. Hi, Patty. How are you? How's it going? I'm glad you're here. Hi, Sujitra. How are you? It's good to see you guys. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let everybody join in, and then we're going to get started. We're going to be going through some basics. So if you are new to dot painting and dot mandalas, I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use. We're going to talk about prepping a project. We're going to talk about picking colors. We're going to do all of that stuff. And I think it's going to be a good day today. So if you are painting along with me, you can be painting on any surface at all. Doesn't matter what you're painting on. You can be painting on canvas, paper, wood. If you're painting on something like ceramic or glass or anything like that, you do need multi-surface acrylic paints. But as far as just doing, just a normal design on something regular with regular paints, you can paint on pretty much anything you want. Hey, Rex, how you doing, love? It's good to see ya. Hi, Cindy, how are ya? I'm glad you were able to make it. Okay, so we're going to go through some basics. So before we get started, if you're going to be painting along with me, I want to walk you through the first step. The first thing that you want to do is take your surface, and for my tutorials and for most of my art actually, I paint everything black. The reason I do that, and I start with a black surface, is because I want to make my life as easy as humanly possible and have the ability to cover mistakes if I make them. Hey, Jan. Good to see ya. So a black background is incredibly forgiving. So when you have a black background, it's easy to cover up mistakes because you can pull off the wet paint of something that you did that you didn't like, and then you can cover back over it with black paint, and you pretty much have a new fresh slate to go back in and continue creating with. So almost every project that you're going to see me do, I almost always do a black background. I also really like how the colors pop on a black background. It does limit some of the colors because if you get into really, really dark purples or really, really dark blues or dark teals or dark greens, those colors don't necessarily show up really well on a black background. But for the most part, it's a very, very good background to be working on. Oh, good. I'm glad you're doing okay. Hey, Autumn, how you doing? How's everything going, you guys? So if you have a surface in front of you, if you choose not to do a black background, that is totally okay. But my recommendation to you right now is that if you have something that you can paint your background with, then that will be a good starting point for you. And once you've painted that background, we're going to go through and talk about some tools. We're going to talk about paints. We're going to talk about prepping the surface, all of that sort of stuff, how drawing grid lines and guidelines on. And then we're going to jump in and go through the three main types of designs that you will typically find in a dot mandala. Oh, I'm glad, Cindy. I'm glad you're here too. Hi, Barb. How you doing? Hi, Sharon. So the surface that I have is a wood heart. It's not perfectly sanded. The more you sand the wood surface, the nicer it is. And the smoother the surface that you have, the nicer it's going to be to paint on. Now, the thing to know with wood or with canvas, if you're painting on anything that has a really rough surface, that is going to impact the shape of your dots, especially canvas. I find canvas incredibly frustrating because of all of the fibers and everything that are in the canvas, whether it's a stretched canvas or a canvas panel. So you want to really prep it really well to help smooth out the surface as much as humanly possible so that the surface itself isn't going to impact the shape of your dots. So if you are using canvas, you're probably going to want to do more than one coat of a black base coat or whatever color you're going to do. And in a perfect world, if canvas is something you're going to continue to work with, then I would recommend picking up some gesso. I'm going to grab mine and I'll show you what it looks like here. I have clear gesso. You can buy white gesso. You can buy black gesso as well. And this is specifically for surface preparation. So I use the Liquitex. You can buy this at Michael's. And giving the surface 1 to 2, sometimes even 3 coats of gesso is going to give you a really, really nice smooth surface. So this is particularly for canvas. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you find that you want to continue to work on canvas a lot, then you can definitely pick up some gesso and it'll make your life a lot easier and a lot less frustrating. I also paint on the wood panels an awful lot. So at the dollar store, I can get these wood panels. Let me move this up here. This is one that I painted from a previous tutorial. And the wood panels are nice and easy because you don't have to do as much prep. So just keep that in mind when it comes to your surface. Especially if you're just learning, make your life as easy as you possibly can by picking a surface that is going to be nice and smooth and easy for you to paint on and not cause yourself a lot of frustration. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to do this wood heart. Now, let's talk about some of the other supplies that I use. On Amazon for about $10 or $15, you can get a set of a whole bunch of dotting tools as well as some of these stencils. If it's something that you're enjoying and you want to continue doing, I highly recommend getting some stencils. I don't even always use all of the guidelines, but I will use it, and I will, on something like this, like the heart, instead of trying to sit there with a ruler or a tape measure and going cross-eyed trying to do all of the measurements to find the center, you can put a stencil like this in the middle, make sure that it's pointing straight for the areas where you need to be, and then you can kind of see, so if I drew this line and this line here, are they pretty much centered, or do I need to turn it a little bit? How can I make this work? But this can be a really great way to find the center of your project. You can also get curved ones that are made of silicone. Let me see if I can grab one really quickly here in my drawer. And my drawers are such a mess. I apologize for noise that this is going to create. If you are creating stones, then you can actually buy these flexible stencils as well. I got mine from Happy Dotting Company on Etsy. They have a website as well. They sell a bunch of molds too, but these stencils are fantastic to be able to go around a molded stone. I make all of my own stones. I rarely paint natural stone anymore. Part of that is because I like the smooth surface that I can create. The molds that create the stones that I will paint, they have the center marked for me, so I just have to line the center up with one of these stencils and draw on my guidelines, but these can be incredibly helpful, okay? If you don't have these stencils though, you are not stuck, and you certainly don't need them. I didn't start with them. You can use a ruler, and then you can mark out all of your different lines with a protractor. You can draw the circles with a compass, and that will give you all of the different guidelines that you need. So that's how I'm going to do mine today, because I'm going to assume that you guys don't have all of the stencils, just to show you how I do it. Okay, so first thing I'm doing on a heart is I'm putting this in the middle. If you are doing something round or square, just do your absolute best to try and find the widest part of the circle, or go corner to corner on your square. And that will help you find your midline. And then what I will typically do is, especially on an odd shape like this, I will actually just line it up and just kind of eyeball it a little bit, just to see if I'm kind of in the middle. And I think that's probably about there. And the beautiful part is draw it once, and if it doesn't look like it's the middle, then you can always change it. Like, that's a little bit high up, so I'm actually going to bring it down just a little bit more to about there. And then I'm going to draw my other line across. So now I have my center. Okay, so that's going to be where I put the center You're getting glitches? Hi, Belle Beer, how are you? Hi, Barb. Is anybody else getting glitches? We've been having internet issues for the last day and a half. We've got a lot of wind and a lot of extreme cold. Not extreme like Winnipeg, so I'm not going to complain too much because I know that Barb is in Winnipeg, and I'm certainly not complaining because we're nowhere near as cold as Winnipeg. But it has been impacting our internet, so let me know if you guys are having any issues here. We're going to try as best as we can to get through this. And hopefully we will luck out and we will be able to press forward. Sharon, if you could, just a quick side note for Sharon. Sharon, when I do your orange heart, do you want it on an orange stone or do you want an orange heart wood plaque? If you can let me know later on today, that would be awesome. And if you aren't hearing this because you're glitching, then I will send you another message. Okay, let's talk about tools now. So we've got our center marked. The next thing that you can do if you have a protractor is you can start to mark your angles. So you just want to start literally bisecting all of these sections. So you can, again, you can just eyeball it. What I find really, really helpful, and I don't know if the camera is going to pick up on this, but this is a see-through ruler, okay? So what I can do is, because I've got these inch marks here, let's see if I can get a light in a little bit better. Let's see. So I have, this is going to be a little hard to see, and I apologize because I don't have another color ruler to try this with. But see how there's this 6-inch mark right here, right? Or this 5-inch mark right here. This line here, I kind of try to line it up with that center to make it look like it's actually in the middle. So I'm not only trying to line it up this way, but this helps me kind of try and keep it as close to perpendicular as I possibly can. Okay, thanks, Jan. How are you, Balbir? Are you doing well? Okay, good. I'm glad that the glitches aren't happening for everybody. That sucks that it's happening for Sharon. So once you kind of use that, you can eyeball it, or you can use your protractor and mark out all of your different angles. And then once you get that line drawn, then it's just a matter of lining this up so that it's perpendicular. I love the see-through ruler for that because it allows me to see the line that I've just drawn underneath. Okay, so there we go. So we've got this drawn this way. Okay. Yes, Sharon, I wanted to ask you really quickly, for your orange heart, do you want it on an on a stone, or do you want one of these wood plaques? So if you could just let me know, that would be awesome, because I am going to get started on that too. All right, so we've got our center marked, and we've got all of these here. Oh, good, Belbeer. I'm glad you're doing well. It's always good to see you. Welcome to anybody who's new to these lives. Please know I'm going to do my absolute best to answer any comments. I do have some friends who are here with me that if they are available and are able to and know the answers, they might help answer some questions with me. But just know that if I don't answer your question right away, I will get to it. I will do my absolute best to scroll back and make sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay, so those are your basic tools for getting your guidelines on, right? So we've got the option of stencils, or you can use your ruler, your protractor, and your compass. To do with the compass, I'm going to, it's like going back to grade 6 geometry class here, right? I'm also using a watercolor pencil crayon. These wash off really, really well when you want to get rid of your guidelines. Now, the thing that I want to caution everybody on is when it comes to drawing on your guidelines, any kind of pencil that you are using, whether it's a chalk pencil, as in a charcoal pencil, or a watercolor pencil crayon, they all have a little bit of waxiness to them. So before you start painting, you want to go in with a little bit of an eraser to go and erase some of the lines. Now, not completely, but just kind of lighten it up. The reason for that is if I was to dot directly on top of one of these lines, like if I was to put a dot here, for example, the sides where it's crossing over this line would almost pinch in on itself. Like you would have your line and you would have like a dot that looks kind of like this. See how it kind of pinches in when it crosses the line? So you want to make sure that whatever you're using to draw your guidelines, you are going to be able to kind of erase them a little bit to get rid of that thick waxiness, to make sure that you're not going to impact the shape of your dots there. I really like the watercolor pencil crayons. I used to use charcoal pencils, and let me tell you, they were a royal pain in the butt because they do not sharpen well at all. And I spent more time sharpening these pencils and watching them break into the garbage can than, you know, more time doing that than I did actually using it. So I have an eraser that I actually will go over and just really lightly start to erase some of these lines. So they're still there in the background, but they're just not going to be so prominent that they're going to impact the shape of my dots. Okay. All right, let me see what Sharon said. Oh, okay. All right, sorry, you had said on one of the lives that I still needed to paint you an orange heart, so I assumed that it was something that you wanted. So it is going to go on the back burner then for a little while. Yeah, a lot of people don't. Hi, Jerry Lynn. It's good to see ya. Okay, so see how much lighter those lines are now? Okay, so we still have our center. We can still see it all, but they're not super prominent. Now let's talk tools for a second. I'm going to put this aside and we're going to bring in the tools. So I'm going to show you some of my favorites that I use. Now, I have a set like this. These are nail dotting stylus tools. They all have a metal ball at the end of each one, all different sizes. They usually come in a pack of 5. I sell packs of 5 with wood handles, not these acrylic ones. And the wood handle ones are on my website, but they all have different size metal balls at the end. Okay. So these are the great tools for what's called walking the dots. So when you see a pattern like this, like the green, where it's gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller, that's called walking the dots. That tends to work the best with a rounded tool like one of these nail dotting tools. You can also find them in the clay sculpture area of Michael's as well. And a lot of the sets that have the stencils come with tools that are just like this. So I think for under 20 bucks on Amazon, you could get like 4 or 5 different stencils and at least 5 or 6 different tools. Now, this set of tools here, I got at Michael's in the clay sculpture section. I used to work with polymer clay, so I had a lot of these tools, thankfully, lying around. Right? So these ones are really good. They also have the metal ball, but they have these silicone brushes on the end. These I find are really, really nice. If I make a mistake on something, these silicone brushes do a really nice job of pulling the paint off, and then I will go back over with my black paint and try again. So these are awesome tools, and I think they were 10 bucks at Michael's as well. So with their coupons and stuff, not too bad. The ones that you'll see me use a lot, then probably the next most, are these tools here that look like white pencils, but they all have different size ends on them, okay? They go from a 1 millimeter. Let me see if I can find my number 1. There's my number 1. So it goes super tiny, and then see how they get a lot bigger. And they go up as high as 28 millimeters. These are by DIY Mandala stones. They are on Etsy and they are on Amazon as well. And these are my absolute favorites. Now, I have not done a good job keeping these clean. These are really tough to clean. And I did some research the other day to see what the best ways are to clean because I was concerned that I was going to be cleaning them in a way that was going to damage them. And she recommends, the lady who makes these, she recommends just really hot water, no soap, nothing abrasive that can scratch it, because if you scratch it, that could impact the dot that you have at the end as well. Okay. So I'm not that strange. No, you're definitely not that strange at all, Sharon. Now an orange tea light holder. All right. I will keep that in mind then, Sharon. I will totally do that. Perfect. So these tools are my favorites. You don't need to invest in fancy tools though. The only reason I invested in these is because I was putting so many hours into doing this art form that I really wanted a nice set. But I actually started with crochet hooks. So I got a whole bunch of acrylic crochet hooks, some of these ones, some of them from Walmart, and I actually did a lot of painting with these crochet hooks as well. Drill bits, the ends of pens and pencils that are round and flat, like going in and dotting with the end of a pencil crayon would work well. Drill bits, nails, flathead nails, cotton swabs, wooden dowels that you can get at the dollar store, different things like that. Toothpicks. I used to use toothpicks all the time. The only reason I don't use toothpicks anymore is because I took an old sewing pin and I snipped off the end and I stuck it into the end of an eraser so that I use this to move the paint around when I'm doing swoops, and I'll show you how I do that later. And I found that this worked out really, really well. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do, ends of paint brushes that are around, so many different things. So don't feel that you have to go out and spend money on fancy dotting tools in order to be able to play with this art form. I know lots of professional artists that do this art form that do not have professional tools. They use crochet hooks. They use just what's around their house, and they create spectacularly beautiful artwork. So just keep that in the back of your mind, okay? So the next thing we have to talk about then, now that we know we've got our tools, we're ready to go, now we have to talk about color. So this is where it's really, really fun. So if it's a black background, like I mentioned earlier, if you use a really, really dark color, then it's probably not going to show up super well on the black background, okay? But you can choose any colors that you want and any number of colors that you want. You're going to see a lot of dot mandala artists. I'll show you some of the different, like you can put, this is all rainbow colors that just put in different orders. You can do ombres, so you have white going into this dark pinky red, and just by gradually mixing different amounts of each of these colors together, the color is really where you can have a lot of fun. And this is where practice comes in. So the stuff that I'm going to show you guys today is stuff that you can repeat over and over and over and over and over again for practice. The key with anything that you are trying to practice, though, is that you need to enjoy it, right? Doesn't mean that we enjoy every single second. There are times, lots of times, where I get frustrated and I have to get up and walk away and do something different, but I still just, all my thought is always on when can I get back and sit down and paint again, right? Practice comes a lot easier when it's something that you really, really enjoy, okay? So get into the habit of finding different ways to enjoy it. So sometimes, you know, for fun, I will just create a whole piece that's all dots and walking dots. Or I'll create a piece that's all like this. Or I will create a piece that is all swoops. There's so many different options that you can play with pretty much the same patterns, but get the practice in that you want to have so that you can start to really create the muscle memory for each of the different techniques that are there. Okay? I hope that makes sense so far. So the three different types that we're going to go through today are going to be rows of dots like this. We're going to go through walking dots like these petals. And we are going to go through some swoops as well. Yay, swoops. Hi, Kim. Yeah, so we're going to go through swoops as well. Okay, so those are the three things that we are going to go through. I kind of consider them the three main designs that you're going to see most often. We're not going to get into top dots. Top dots are being where I've got like the orange on top, orange and yellow on top of the red. We're not going to get into that today. We're just going to go with some basic designs, picking some colors and putting together a bit of a piece. So we are going to go through the circles, we're going to go through the petals, and we're going to go through some swoops. Everybody doing okay so far? Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out today. All of these tutorials, I do these tutorials every Saturday from 1 until 3 p.m. Eastern. They're always free. And after the live is over, I will be posting an item on my website where if you want access to the recording of the website, you can recording of the tutorial. You can purchase that on my website. And I also have a Patreon. So if you want to pay a monthly fee and just automatically get access to the entire back library and anything going forward, then you can do that as well. So the Patreon, like I said, is a membership. And it is patreon.com/Mandala Love Affair. And my website is www.Mandala Love Affair as well. Okay, you're with friends now. Yay, fantastic. That's awesome, Paul. I'm so glad you're here. Oh, you're welcome, Belbeer. Oh, fantastic, Sharon. Okay, awesome. Good. And we're going to carry on a bunch of different pieces and everything. So let's go through picking some colors. So when it comes to picking colors, what I typically do is I look at the piece, but then I sit and I just stare at my paints for a little while. Now I'm going to give you a view. It's a very, very messy. But I've got all of my paints here. I actually got this cabinet at Michael's. It was regular $24, and I got it with one of their coupons, so I paid like $15 for it. These are just wooden boxes I got from the dollar store, because those paints in there are actually the taller bottles like this, as opposed to the ones in the squares, which are the small ones. So I've got these two different size bottles. I buy a lot of my paints from Dollarama, from Dollar Tree. These ones are Dollar Tree. These ones are Dollarama here in Canada. Any craft acrylic paints are what you want to look for. I used Craft Smart, I used Deco Art, I used Folk Art. So you can buy those at Michael's, at Walmart, all over the place. So what I typically do is I'll sit and I'll look at all of my colors, and I'll just start to kind of look and see, I wonder which colors I would really, really want to use. The first one that jumped out at me today before I even jumped on here was this purple one. It's called Wild Eggplant, and it's one that I bought quite a while ago and I haven't used it yet, and I've been just dying to, because like, look at this color. Like, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So yeah, we're going to use that one today. And I'm also thinking we are going to use green and orange. Oh, sorry. Green and orange and teal. I think we're going to use those 4 today. Okay. These are all the same brand. They don't need to be. So, you can work in little paint pots. I've got a bunch of these little paint pots that I use, or, you know, when you get the big strips of the paint pots, I just cut them apart. You can use a palette, which is what we're going to do today. So I'm just going to turn you back down this way. Oh, hearts right back to you, Balbeer. It's always good when you're here. I love when you guys come and hang out with me. All right, so I am going to just fill up my little paint pots. You don't need a ton of paint. You can mix custom colors. That's always fun to do as well. We will, in another tutorial, we will spend some more time going through some custom colors too. How to mix different colors, how to create the color grades like on that pink stone. And we'll spend some time doing that sort of thing. There are past tutorials that I did go over that stuff in. So if you are interested in checking out one of those tutorials, you can do so on my website. But until then, we've got these colors here. Now, I usually will throw in a little bit of white. So we might still put in some white in here, but that might come in later. So, right? Isn't it beautiful? And it's wild eggplant too. Not just any old eggplant. It's wild eggplant. Okay, so I am going to put some white in my palette too, because I will probably end up using it. Make sure before you pour your craft acrylic paints, really give them a good shake. They all have different consistencies. So just because you get one brand, all the different colors may have different consistencies. So keep that in mind. In a perfect world, you don't want something that's too watery. You want something that's a little bit thicker, but if it gets too thick, then it can create all kinds of funky little bumps and stuff. So for example, on this one, see these little blue kind of almost little nodules here? That's from thicker paint and the way that it was drying. So just keep that in mind, that they're not all created equal, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put down our center dot. So this one's going to be a relatively large dot. It's the one that I used to use my large crochet hook for my center dots all the time. This was just always such a perfect size. So I'm going to grab something similar from my tools. And I always just kind of hold it over and see, is that going to be a good size, I think. I think that looks pretty nice. And then I'm going to choose a color. Now, when I'm placing this dot, because I don't have something that is, now I could just place it down and I could trace it so that I've got something very specific to line up with. I typically eyeball it, but it's all where your comfort level is. But what you want to be able to do is almost look at it from the top down and see that those lines are even on both sides, right? And try and get it as close to the center as you can. So I'm gonna do a purple center dot. And there we go. That one was easy. The center dot, if I'm going to have something that I have to start and redo multiple times, it's usually the center dot. So that one went incredibly smoothly. It doesn't always happen that way. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some tiny circles like this. We're going to build up a little bit of a ring around that center dot. So I'm going to start with white. Now I'm using this other tool. It's called it's a micro dotter. It's also a clay sculpting tool. You can get it on Amazon, and this thing is fantastic for creating really tiny dots. So I'm going to start here. Now when I start doing these dots, I always start at the North Pole, and then I spin it around. And then I do the South Pole. You could call this the clock method too. I do 12 o'clock, then I spin it around. And then, so my dots are at 3 and 9, and I do 12 o'clock again. And then I do another one here. If you don't have the guidelines, there's quite often, I won't put any other guidelines other than the original, like divide it in there so that we've got the center point. I don't always add these other lines, and I don't always add the rings. It's entirely up to you whether you want to or not. The thing I would say about guidelines is that don't panic if your painting goes off the guidelines. Focus on how can I divide everything up evenly in all of the sections. So instead of looking at, I need to get a dot right on this line, I am much more concerned with making sure that my dot is halfway in between those two. So I might not even use that line going forward. And that's okay. Don't panic about that. So in this one, that's exactly what I'm going to do. It needs to be over a little bit more. And then just start dividing each of those sections in half. You also want to make sure that you're cleaning off your tools on a regular basis. Do not follow my example on this one. I am really bad for that. You can wipe it off anywhere. You can wipe it off on a damp cloth. That's typically what I do. I also will, very often you'll see me wipe it on my hand and go from there. So we're just going to keep going. I'm going to divide in half. Now, when you get to this point, have a really quick look and see, do I think if I put this dot here in the middle, am I still going to have room for another dot here and another dot here, right? Because I want to add in another dot here and another one here. If I don't have enough room, then instead I would just do 2 dots in the middle. Okay? So it's completely up to you, but you want to make sure that your spacing is there. So don't panic if you can't get 3 dots in there. Just do what you have space for. And what I typically do is I go around and I just divide each one of these in half first. And if I am wrong and I put a dot down only to find out that, you know, I chose a tool that's too large, the dot is too large, it's not going to fit enough in there, then I will just erase that dot, pull it off with one of those silicone brushes or with a wet cotton swab, and just paint over it and start over again. This art form, you will make mistakes. It's just going to happen. And the thing that is one of the hardest things to practice is just being kind to yourself when you make those mistakes. You let go of the idea of perfection. Yeah, Jan, I do it a lot on my hand. And I try not to stab myself with the tool too. Now, you might like the look of this. You might not want to get in there with even more tiny dots in there. That's totally okay. It's completely up to you. You could leave it with just this kind of spacing and go from there. I am going to go in and put in the in-between dots. I always like when I do use my hand to wipe off my tools, because at the end of the day, I have all of these colors all over my hand, and it's just like, ooh, I feel like a real artist because I've got paint all over me. It's just one of those things that I really enjoy. But make sure you're cleaning off your tools on a very regular basis, because it will change the size of the dots as the paint builds up on the tool. And they're not all going to work out to be exactly the same, and that is totally okay too. Especially when you're practicing and just getting started, let go as best you can of your need for perfection and embrace your love of learning and trying something new. Okay? What if you get a bubble in your center dot? If you get a bubble in your center dot, that's a really good question. So I would go in with a toothpick or something else that has a point on there. And then, yeah, just pop that bubble right away and it should level it. You want to try and catch it while the paint is still really wet though, because if it's already started to dry, then it'll create an indent on the dot a little bit later. Yeah, that was stressful. Those are usually the most stressful parts, I find, is putting down the center dot and doing that first row. And now we can just start to cycle through these other colors. So I'm going to do a couple more rows of dots like this. The difference this time is that I have a base to go off of, right? I have these little dips here, these little spaces in between each dot. So I want to put another dot in here, one in here, and in here, and I'm going into the little dips in between each dot, and that's how I'm going to place and know how to center my dots going forward. So let's see. So I'm going to choose a tool that is slightly larger, and then just gradually get bigger and bigger and bigger on these dots. So as we move out from the center, the dots are going to get larger. Okay, so we're going to go with orange, and I'm going to place that dot there. See how it's only slightly bigger than the row before? If I make it too large, I'll show you. Like if I make it really, really large, then it's taking the risk that I'm not going to be able to fit them all in going all the way around. Right? So when you're in doubt, when you are not sure what size tool you should be using, always err on the side of caution. Now those worked out pretty well, so I'm actually gonna keep going with that. Except for that one, because that one's crappy. All right, so let's show you how I fix a mistake. So I go in with my silicone brush, I just pull off the paint that I don't want there anymore. And then I've got a tiny paintbrush, and I'll grab my black paint, and I'm just going to paint right back over top of it. And then over here with that dot that's quite a bit smaller, I will go in after with the new tool and just dot right over top of it. All right. So I'm going to let that dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to continue around the rest of this center dot. Like, see how those are almost starting to overlap and go further around the side? That's where you want to be careful. Because see how now I'm trying to squeeze to actually go into the dip on there. I have to make this one fairly tiny so it doesn't roll over onto that one, which isn't a huge deal, but it's still something. I feel like there's a hair stuck in this paint. Just give it a little stir and see. So honestly, this is one that I'm actually gonna pull the paint, all of the orange dots off, because they're all just that little bit too big for me, for my preference. So I'm going to go back to the original size dot in the very first one that I laid down. And this happens all the time, right? If you make a change in what you prefer, in what you want to see, that's again where the black background really comes in handy, right? Because it's so forgiving and easy to cover up things when you want to make a change or do a fix. Okay, so I'm just grabbing my paintbrush, because that's what was going to happen. So when Jan commented earlier, nobody breathe or she will merge dots. When those dots get to the point where they're just that little bit too large like that, then that's what happens. When the dots touch, they merge together and it looks like, you know, one large oblong dot. And that's not what we want, right? We want that separation between each dot so that it really stands out and lets the design come through. But still, nothing to panic about. There are very few things that are not fixable. There's very few times where I've ever had to just completely throw a piece away. And normally, honestly, when that has happened, it has been because I've, you know, painted on a new surface and it hasn't gone well and I just want to start over, or I've just started over too many times and it's time to just let that piece go. But it's totally, most stuff is totally fixable. Back last summer, I painted a guitar. I collaborated with Funky Upbeat Designs. They are a pair of artists out of Markham, Ontario that take old instruments that need a little bit of love and they turn them into these incredible, absolutely incredible pieces of art. And I got to paint some for them and work with them. And there was one guitar that I painted and it was rainbow colors, but it was row after row after row in this kind of a pattern. And I was getting impatient. I stuck my arm in a huge chunk of it, and it would have been the equivalent of wiping off a quarter of the entire painting. And it was so frustrating, and it was so infuriating that it happened. But it was fixable. Once I stopped crying, I cleaned up my arm, I got out my tools, and I just pulled all of the wet paint off, and I went back over it in black, and I was able to fix it. So it takes something pretty extreme for it not to be fixable. So be kind with yourselves when it comes to stuff like that, because there's lots and lots of options to get in there to help you fix stuff. Now, let's talk about other spacing. So I'm going to switch tools. I'm actually switching to my 1mm of my DIY Mandala Stones tools. It's still a little bit too large, but sometimes it's the paint too, right? This paint is a little bit thicker, so I'm just trying not to add too much. I still go every other one because that helps me with my spacing. Right, so instead of just dotting one right after the other, I find this is helpful for me to keep my spacing because I'm not just blindly following the row before. I am still trying to make sure that the spacing between each of these is all the same, even if it doesn't perfectly match up with the row below. Cindy, I am in Campbellcroft, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes north of Port Hope. So east of Toronto. I live on a farm with my friends and with a bunch of animals. And we're actually in the process of starting an animal sanctuary. What type of paint do I use? For stuff like this, I use regular craft acrylics. If we're talking about the mugs or anything on ceramic or glass, then I will use multi-surface acrylic paints. The difference between the two is that multi-surface acrylic paints, when they cure, they technically cure to be top shelf dishwasher safe, whereas these craft acrylics are not going to be dishwasher safe. They might not even adhere to the surface at all. So it's very important to know for sure if what the surface is that you're painting on and whether the paints are going to stick to that surface. But craft acrylics is where I've spent most of my time. I've only recently started painting mugs, and that's been new. And that is multi-surface acrylic paint. So I'm still learning about different brands of multi-surface acrylics and what ones work well and all of that sort of thing. But it's still just acrylic paint. So it's just finding the ones that you like. I just had to take a quick drink there. So for the multi-surface acrylic paints, I've been using DecoArt, Martha Stewart, Apple Barrel, and Folk Art. I would say Folk Art are probably my favorite. Apple Barrel and Martha Stewart would definitely be up there. My least favorite would be the DecoArt. Now in regular craft acrylics, I'm not a fan of Apple Barrel paints at all in the regular craft acrylics, but I really like their multi-surface. I'm a big fan of matte paints as well. I'm not a fan of the high gloss finish. I like matte colors and nice flat colors. So that's one of the other things that I look for when I'm buying paints is, are they flat or are they going to be satin or glossy? And I typically stay away from the gloss finish. Yes, Fred is one of our donkeys here, and he's fabulous. He's my favorite. I love him very, very much. So see how that last dot that I laid down isn't perfectly lined up with the space below it, but it is nice and lined up in between the two dots on either side of it. So that's a big important one to me. Now those two I have to do because I don't have too much space there. And there we go. So there's the first row done. And notice it's not perfect, right? There are some dots that have a little bit of wonky shape to them. I'm going to try and make the camera hopefully focus here. There are slightly different sizes. There's slightly different spacing along there. But in the grand scheme of things, it's totally okay. Oh, and yes, yeah, totally forgot about my own cat, Audrey. She's the only animal here that's actually mine. She's starting to settle into life at the farm. I think it's been stressful on her, but she's definitely starting to settle in a little bit more, which is nice. My girl, my beautiful girl. All right, so now I'm going to go to the teal color, and I'm going to do another row. Okay, so I'm going slightly larger again in the size of the tool. Now here's the thing, is all of your paints are going to be acting differently depending on how thick or thin they are, right? So one size tool might produce a specific size dot in one paint and produce a completely different size dot in a different paint based on the paint consistency, right? So it's really important that you kind of get to know your paints and really get to know your tools. So just really watching and practicing a lot with them and saying, okay, so when the paints are really watery, I need to go down a size in my tool because my smaller tools are going to produce larger dots when the paints are watery. If they're really thick, then I want to see how do they behave when they're thick. Is it that my tool is carrying more paint than normal, so it's going to make my dots bigger? Or is it that the paint sticks to the tool, so not as much of it comes off of the tool and onto the surface that I'm painting? So you really want to play with it. I highly recommend having like a test canvas or a test stone where you can just kind of play around with colors. You can see what colors look good together before you start doing a piece if you want to. When you get new paints, you can try them out with different dotting tools to see how the size is going to change, all of that sort of thing. But practice, practice, practice is the thing that you're going to hear me say an awful lot when it comes to dot mandalas and dot painting. Practice is what's going to do it for you. And again, the key is making sure that you really enjoy it, right? Practice comes a lot easier when it's something that you enjoy. And my personal experience with this art form, I found it when I was in a really really dark time in my life. And I really didn't care what happened to me. And I went from really not caring if I woke up in the morning to looking forward to getting out of bed because I was going to get to paint that day. It's very meditative when you're doing this alone and just kind of listening to some music, or you've got a show in the background, or even just in silence. It's incredibly meditative, and it can really transport you into a nice place of calm, which is incredibly wonderful. That's been the thing that's helped me the most, is just having that thing that I can go to that just makes life a little bit easier, right? So there we go. That's where we're at so far. So one of the things that's really interesting that I find, and there's a lot of artists that I follow, Art of Points, Fine Rosa, they do exquisite work, but you will see very similar elements in their pieces every single time you watch them. Colors will change and the design will change slightly, but you see a lot of similarities. So you'll probably find that you develop a lot of similarities as well when it comes to creating your own pieces. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is they both tend to start with a nice large center dot, and then they do either 2 or 3 rows, just like this around the center. Once they've done their 2 or 3 rows, then they jump in and they start creating some spots to do the petal shape. So just to refresh your memory, the petal shape is where we're going to do the walking dots like this, like the pink there. So these are called walking dots. Those are the petals. So I'm going to go in now with the green, with this gorgeous lime green, and I am going to dot on the poles again. Now there's a couple different things you can do here. So you have a couple options. You can choose a size and you can go to like every other or every third of these dots if you know for sure that your math is going to work out. What I have started to do, and this is a new process for me because I've always been very, very, very particular about wanting to always stay in the little divots from the row before. Okay, you certainly don't have to do that. So on this one, we're not going to, but if you want to, you can. This one, I am going to dot on the times on the clock again. So I'm going to do 12. So it's almost like I'm completely ignoring that those other rows are there. They're there for placement, so I know where to place the dots, but I'm not concerned about where those spaces are. Okay, so I am, oops, there's something in there. Sometimes you'll see your paint and you'll be like, there's a hair or something in there. And here at the farm, there's always hair in everything. I have been dotting now for about 2 years. Yeah, I started January of 2019. And now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to divide those spaces in half. Again, not caring about where those spaces are, where the dips in the row before are. This has only been my full-time job since COVID, really, since March. I worked in automotive. Before that, I used to work with car dealerships, and I would go in and I would train their staff and scripting and all of that sort of thing and how to deal with customers. And it was something I was really good at, but it wasn't something I was enjoying anymore. So I really wanted to get into something different. And I was doing this on the side. And when COVID hit and all of my other business came to a grinding halt, I kind of thought, all right, well, you got all this time on your hands now. Give it a shot. See what happens. Yes, and ladybugs everywhere. Oh my gosh. Did you guys see that TikTok where people just lost their minds because I had a ladybug crawl through and everyone's the one comment that really made me laugh. So I had a ladybug in one of my TikTok videos that it literally ran from the edge of one paint pot and into the other. Not even 2 seconds at the end of the video, the very end of a 60-second video. And TikTok lost their mind. Oh my gosh, it's a cockroach. Oh my gosh, it's bed bugs. It was absolutely hilarious. But the comment that got to me was somebody messaged or commented and said, listen, lady, I know a ladybug and they don't move that fast. To which my response was, my hand doesn't move that fast either. This video is sped up 18 times. And it was just so funny. So funny. There's probably a ladybug swimming in the green, right? Like, seriously, they're going to think it's springtime seeing these colors out here and they're going to come and jump in there. It was absolutely hilarious. Anyways, it was really, really funny. So I'm going to do my first row of these walking dots. So to get set up for that, I'm going to go to each one of these dots and directly on the outer edge, I'm going to create the points of the petals. Now I'm using my micro dotter again because I'm going to do really tiny lines. You can make these as large or as small as you want. Okay. Hi, Celia. How you doing, love? I used to work with Celia at one of my dealerships, and she's a lovely friend from that. I was lucky. I made a lot of great friends from that job, and I was good at it. And it's funny because I knew I didn't want to stay in it. And again, when COVID hit, that was kind of the opportunity for me to say, well, you're not getting any business right now, so what can you do to build this thing that you want to do every day into a business? And it's just starting to pick up now. It's taken a good year to really be in a good place to be able to move forward and know kind of what the future is going to hold. But I will always be grateful for my time with the dealership, for all these people that I've met. Okay, so now that I've got those points on, now I'm going to walk the paint down. So this is your walking dots, okay? I'm actually going to bring the camera over here a little bit, and I'm going to bring it in closer. And let's see if I can get in here without losing any focus. I'm going to try really, really hard not to hit the camera, you guys. I apologize if I do. So I'm going to dip my tool, and instead of dipping my tool back into the paint after each dot, I am only going to dip it the once, and this time I'm just going to keep moving straight down. Okay, now I'm going to dip again. I had more paint on there because I didn't clean off my tool. Didn't follow my own advice there. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do it again. So you dip. Most of the time, like for all of these ones here, it's dip and dot, dip and dot, dip and dot, dip and dot for those circles. But for these walking dots, you're dipping, and then you are dot, 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 dot. And you can count too. I count a lot with walking dots because that helps me see that I'm doing them evenly too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Both sides of these petals are not necessarily going to turn out looking exactly the same, and that's okay. And you might find that on some of them you do 6 on one side and 8 on the other. That just tells you that this dot wasn't perfectly centered. And that's okay too, because you're going to start to get comfortable about that. Now, one thing that I do to help with that is I put those dots on across from me. It's much easier for me to see a nice straight line across from me than it would be to pull it and do it down here. If I pull it and do it down here, chances are I'm going to lean either just slightly to the right or slightly to the left. I usually lean kind of to the right. So just kind of keep that in mind. Try it both ways and see what is going to give you the best result. There is no right way and wrong way to do this. Okay, this is all about how can you get the effects that you want from how you feel most comfortable using your tools and your paints. Okay. Hey, how you doing, Axel? Good to see ya. So I count a lot. This is where the meditation comes into play. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sometimes I dot in time with the music that I'm listening to. It's really fun to kind of watch and see what's influencing you. And see, that one was a little bit of a space. That's okay. I can go back in here, make this dot a little bit bigger. And we're totally good again. Right? It's not the end of the world. There's nothing wrong with being a perfectionist either, though. Just if it starts to take away from your enjoyment, that's when you want to pull back a little and say, you know what, I don't care how perfect it turns out. I want to paint something just because it's fun. Right? So there we go. So we've got our first row of petals on there. So now we're going to go in and do our second row. So Sharon NB on TikTok is Blues Mean Mom. We got a bunch of TikTokers on here with us, which is awesome. And welcome again to anybody who's new. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions if you have them. I'll do my absolute best to answer them for you. So this way, I'm going out again. Now, even as we're doing this, I haven't used this paint yet. I'm seeing that this purple paint is very thick, and it almost looks like it's drying a little translucent in there, and it's drying very, very dark. So this is telling me that this row of petals here that I'm laying down is going to be fairly dark. And I mean, I'm okay with that. But again, you're going to get preferences with each piece that you do. You're going to get clearer and clearer preferences on what you like and what you don't like. And that is always valuable. Hi, Blaney. How you doing? Good to see ya. I'm proud of myself for remembering too, Axel. That's okay. I hope school's going okay. And I'm doing good. Thank you so much for asking. You're so sweet. So now we're going to keep going. So I'm using a slightly larger tool for the second row of walking dots. Now, the reason that I'm kind of a little bit concerned with this color choice is because I'm seeing how the center dot is drying. And see how it almost, I can see a lot of the purple, a lot of the black in behind it. It might just mean that this color is a little too dark. And might do a little bit better if I mixed in like some pink or something else to brighten it up a little bit and to make it a little bit more opaque. When it's quote-unquote cheaper paints like dollar store paints, you don't always know how opaque they are. A lot of the paints at Michael's, if you get into like the heavier body acrylics, at least on the bottles, those ones will show you how opaque the paints are. But it can still add some cool detail. I saw a really, really cool piece that somebody did the other day, and they used a black background and they used a different shade of black dots in the background, so you could only look at them when the light hit it at a certain angle, and it was really beautiful. So don't be afraid of using dark ones. It can add some really cool contrast in there and some very subtle contrast that you might not be able to create with a bunch of dark colors. Let me just scroll back and catch up on comments here. Hi Astrid, how you doing? Oh, yes, do planter pots. Are you in Canada or whereabouts are you, Astrid? Hi, Em. How you doing? Yay, TikTokers. Welcome. It's so good to see you. One hell of a ride this last week. Holy crap, eh? Thank you so much for all of the love and support, you guys, from all of you, new and those that have been here with me on the ride longer. It's just so freaking cool, and I'm so excited for everything that's coming. It's just inspiring me to do so much more, and I'm so grateful for you guys. So the biggest key is making sure that you are enjoying the whole process. So Astrid, when you're getting back into it, do it because you want to enjoy it, not because you need to get anything from it, right? Do it just for the pure joy of it, and that's when inspiration comes. That's when all the fun stuff starts to happen. So I am going to do one more row of walking dots. So again, I'm dotting across for me to create the peak. And I'll catch up on comments here in another second. This used to be my favorite dotting tool to do a lot of tiny dots with, but I bent the end, being a little too overzealous cleaning out something with it, and I bent the end, so I eventually need to get a new one. But I've got my micro dotter now. I tend not to use it as often. And this paint is really, really thick. So there we go. So this is where these guidelines are starting to come in handy. You can see the circle in the background here, and it's letting me know that I've lined up my stuff pretty good because all of these orange dots are right on there, right? Autumn, so thankful for Patreon, the replay of the videos. This is my 4th time redoing the 3rd line, and that is completely normal. So please know that. You're going to redo stuff a bunch of times. It is going to happen. What you will eventually get to at some point is letting go of some of the imperfections that made you start over at this particular point. I would be interested to talk to you again in like 6 months and say, remember those lines you used to erase and start over before? Do you still erase those ones, or do you just go with it and keep going? Because I found for me that's changed quite a bit. There have been lots of times where I will redo stuff, but then there's lots more times where I'm like, it'll blend into the design and it's going to look perfect anyway, so it's going to be okay. I'm glad it's been helpful for you though, Autumn. That's awesome. Thank you for joining me. Blaney's been good. Buying a condo. Congratulations. Oh, that's exciting. Well, hopefully sitting here and hanging out with us. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Hopefully hanging out here with us will give you some time to just take a couple of breaths. Hi, Nancy. How you doing? Nancy's another Patreon. Started a new quadmester with 3 courses at once. Oh, Axel, that's tiring. You're in Texas. Okay, so Dollar Tree. At least here in Canada. I don't know if they have them in the States, but have a look. Because I got these ceramic planters at Dollar Tree. Like, look at this thing. It's perfect, right? Like, it's a relatively small size. It's nice and light. It's ceramic. It came in black, white, teal, and this kind of royal blue. I know my lighting is kind of crappy for this right now, but and you know, Dollar Tree, everything's $1.25. So, and it even has like the little sponges on the bottom for making keeping the surface nice and smooth. So check out Dollar Tree for planters, because I was surprised. I'm always shocked with what Dollar Tree has. What part of Denver? Cherry Hills. No way. That's cool. Yay. And Blaney's in Vegas. Nice. How is it warm? Oh, say hi to the sun. Oh, thank you, Belbeer. Okay, I'm just scrolling through here. How do I correct a mistake? So, if I made a mistake and wanted to change one of these dots, what I would do is I would wipe off the dot that is there that I don't want, either with a wet cotton swab, or I have these tools that have these silicone brushes on the end. I would pull that off and just paint over it with black. Super, super simple. I enjoy painting in general. I'm also into nail art. Ooh, very nice. So these tools will do double duty for you then. That's awesome. Okay, I'm just going to do the next row here. And we're going to keep going. Now, sometimes when I do the walking dots, I will actually only do one side and go all the way around. And that's actually a tutorial we are going to do at some point, is the half petals. I promise Jan we will definitely do them. And they create a really cool 3D effect. So that kind of is a good segue into, you don't have to follow these patterns to the letter. You can create them exactly the way that you want them to. You can do all half petals. You can do a whole bunch of swoops. You can keep going with the rows of dots. You can change. You don't have to do the dots in a single color. You could pick 4 or 5 different colors and create a multicolored ring that goes all the way around. There are 0 rules here, you guys. 0, 0, 0, 0 rules. Okay. So play around with it. That's where the forgiveness, being kind to yourself and forgiveness of yourself when you make these quote unquote mistakes. Maybe some mistake is going to be a massive hit of inspiration that you go, oh, I don't like how I did it on this one, but that gives me an idea for a different piece and something that I want to try, right? So just play with it and be okay with making mistakes, especially if you get a new idea and you're like, I just want to try it out. Be totally okay if it doesn't work out. Just keep trying them over and over and over again, and try them with different colors. Try them on a different, sometimes on a stone you might really like it, but you might not like it on canvas, and vice versa, right? Just keep playing with it. Just play and play and play. And then that's going to help you to keep your enjoyment level of it up. And it's going to make you want to keep doing it, right? Practice comes easy when it's something that you really enjoy doing. I've had days where every single thing I've created is something that I didn't like, but I still sat and created all day. And I still gained clarity into what I do like and what I want to do going forward. How are we doing so far? Everybody doing okay? I hope we're doing all right. Oh, good. I know. And it's so hard not to be hard on yourself, isn't it, Nancy? It's so difficult to be kind to yourself. But that'll come with time. It'll really come with time. Perfection slows you down too, right? You want to be able to keep going. You want to be able to just keep powering through and trying new things. Now, one thing that's important to notice here, see my paints here? They're getting a little bit of a film on the top. Okay, it's because I didn't cover them up. This is one of the reasons why I tend to use little paint pots all the time. So I'm actually going to push this aside. I know it's a waste of paint, but I'm not going to be able to recover it now because it's getting thick and gloppy. So I'm going to grab, instead, I'm going to grab my little paint pot row. I've got these rows of these little paint pots. Now, normally I go in with a pair of scissors and cut them up, but I'm way too lazy to do that right now. So I'm just going to fill these up, and then we're going to talk about swoops, because we've done the concentric circles, we've done the petals and the walking dots. So the last thing I want to show you are swoops, and then you will have the three, what I consider anyway, the three staples of dot mandala components. Now, again, there's tons of variations for every single thing that we're going to do. You can do walking dots starting at the bottom and going out towards the edge of the petal. You can do swoops in any direction. You can do half petals so it looks like a big kaleidoscope. You can do it any way that you want, any way at all that you want. You just have to find what's comfortable for you and what you enjoy doing. There's a lot of incredible artists out there as well. I learned from YouTube. I spent a lot of time devouring content by Lydia May. I watched Elspeth McLean an awful lot. And then just on Instagram with all of these incredible artists that are there doing this incredible work. So if you're going to use a paint palette, what I would definitely recommend that you do is have like a wet paper towel that you could put over top of the little divots that have paint in them when you're not using them, to help keep them from drying out. Now, it's really warm in here today because we've got the heat crank because it's the winter storm and everything. So that's kind of why it's drying out, and it's incredibly dry in here. So trying to keep them covered is definitely going to help out a lot. Okay, so let's get back in here. And let me keep scrolling. Isn't the blue pot beautiful? Yeah, it's pretty. Oh, I'm so glad, Blaney. Thank you. Yeah, Dollar Tree's amazing. It's probably pretty picked over right now too, Astrid? Keep your eyes peeled though, because if you get something like that, you scoop those up right away. So I'm gonna go with a white dot. And stressful, it's nice to take an hour with you and just chill and relax some. Oh, I'm so glad, Axel. I knew you'd be happy about that, Jan. We are gonna do a half petal. Oh, no kidding. Grateful for sunshine. Do I follow templates? No, I don't. I do everything on the fly. I do all of it on the fly. Sometimes I'll go in with kind of an idea and I'll kind of map out something that I want to do, but most of the time it's completely off the cuff. I'm so glad, Jen. I'm so glad this is helpful. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Axel, because I'm actually working on a bunch of heart stones. I'm doing a bunch of, I got a mold that actually makes heart stones. So I'm doing, I've got an infographic that shows me all of the LGBTQ plus flag colors, and I'm working on a series of stones that's going to have all of them on there. I'm really excited about that. Yes, practice makes progress, and letting go of perfection, right? Oh, thanks, Jan. That's awesome. So I'm just putting a white dot in here. This is just something that I typically do because I've got this space in here that I'm filling, right? And we're going to put some swoops in there, but I'm not going to have the swoops go all the way down to this blue row. So this white here is just almost just breaking up the design a little bit. There we go. Like so. You'll pick up on an awful lot of different ideas from other dot artists and what they typically do. I highly recommend watching Art of Points. She is on Instagram and on TikTok. Delicate Dots Andrea, and I highly recommend Fine Rosa. Her work is, I long to be just like her. I want to be just like her when I grow up because her work is just so spectacular. So she inspires me an awful lot. Yeah, she did. She just made a TikTok. It's so cool, eh? All right, so let's talk swoops. Does doing everything on the fly come with experience? I think I always did it because I had a hard time when tutorials would be out there with tools that I didn't have, or my paint consistency would be different, and I would get really frustrated when I would try and follow the templates and have them not look the way that I thought they were supposed to look. So I kind of just started winging it that way. But yeah, it definitely comes with experience. But it's something that I honestly haven't really ever thought about it too much, Nancy, honestly. I think I've always done it because I don't like to follow the rules. I think that's my big thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I like that piece, but I don't really like it. So what can I do different that could fit in there? I hope that makes sense. Fine Rosa is F as in Frank, E-I, N as in Nancy, R-O, S as in Sam, A. What you doing, Audrey? Here, quick hello to Audrey. Audrey! Hi! You're on camera. Say hello. She's like, I need to eat. Leave me alone. Oh, good. I'm glad that helps. So yeah, the names are Art of Points, Fine Rosa, F as in Frank, E-I-N-R-O-S-A, and Delicate Dots Andrea. Jessie D Designs is also another incredible dot artist that I watched a lot of. Who else is there? Sue's Mandalas. Anybody else out there have some other dot artists? Firechild. Checking out Firechild. She's doing some beautiful dot work. I'm trying to think of who else is out there that I take a look at a lot. Art of Points, Fine Rosa, Jessie D, Delicate Dots Andrea. Oh my gosh, there's so many. So many. Yeah, Sue Sloan is phenomenal. Never mind the fact that she's just probably one of the sweetest human beings on the planet. All right. Yes, Electric Mandala. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. How did I forget Electric Mandala? She's incredible, and she does crazy dot mandalas using paints in cones, like henna cones. Just amazing. So freaking cool, and a lot of neon stuff too. Okay, just need to take a drink there. Let's see if Audrey, are you trying to escape? All right, so let's see here. Yes, Christina Lee. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Yes, Molly G. Molrocks, Molrocks on Instagram. There are so many great artists out there. Have my Timmy's been watching live. I'm trying to relax a bit. That's awesome, Axel. I hope that you are able to. Hope you're able to take a breath. All right, so let's jump in and let's talk swoops, okay? These are the fun ones. So there's a couple different ways you can do this, and I'm actually going to grab a different canvas here for a second because I want to show you a couple of different ways to do swoops. So see, I have a test. Yes, Dots by Lena. They're fantastic too. Okay, so this is my test canvas. So one way to do swoops is to put paint on your tool. This is one of the round nail dotting tools. Hold it on the surface for a little bit and then slowly drag it down. The thing that I don't like about this method is that it's very hard to control how far down you're going to be able to stretch this. So how I actually started with swoops was I used the tool to lay down a dot and I put as much paint on there as I possibly could. I let lots of paint flow off of the tool. Audrey, stop. And then I grabbed this pencil that I have with a sewing pin stuck into the eraser. And then I go in and I drag the paint down. See how I can nice and easily control how far that swoop goes? I can control the shape of it and go like that. Okay, does that make sense? And you can do that with any size that you have. And you can create different shapes too. And you can lay down the dot with a larger, flatter tool. So I'll do one with this one. So I lay down the dot here. Grabbing a little bit more paint, add a little bit more paint to it. And then I could make little short stubby ones too, right? Like I could go here. And it's, for some people, including myself, the scraping noise is very satisfying. And then what I really like is, so you see a lot of people, they will do swoops where, I'm just going to do this really quickly. One, and then they have a second one over here that comes around the side. Right? So you can create little swoops like that. I really, really like, though, when I have the ability to kind of place it and then figure out how I want them to line up and not just rely on however the paint's going to flow that particular time. So for this one, instead of dragging it from the middle and down, I might drag it from the side so that it stays over here and is nice in here, and then maybe bring this over this way so that it's not perfectly straight but much more of a curve. Right? You can kind of create whatever shape you want to with that. I hope that that makes sense for swoops. I'm a super swooper. I'm totally going to get a t-shirt made with that. Oh, Jan, that's a good idea. Oh, that'd be fun. Okay. I love it. Super swooper. All I think of when I hear that is the Koopa Troopers on Super Mario. Which I'm okay with too. And it's 2:22, just for everybody. Just take a quick moment and be grateful for the time that we get to spend together and doing something really good for ourselves by doing something that we enjoy right now. I like to take those little signs from the universe and just say thank you. We're having a good day. We're having a really fun time painting together, and I'm grateful for all of it. Love it. Super swooper with a ladybug. If you guys think that I'm not going to make some mugs with some ladybugs on them, you are wildly underestimating me. So I hope you guys all know that that will be happening for sure. All right, so now my decision on this particular piece is, how big am I going to make these swoops? So I have a couple guidelines I could go off of. I can make really large swoops out here, and I kind of think that that would be really, really fun. But then I have to figure out what colors I want to do. Right? So I'm thinking I'm going to do blue and then orange and then green on the bottom. So I'm going to do a set of 3 colors. So the first color I'm going to lay down is going to be the largest one in the center, and I am going to start it way out here. So I'm still dotting across from me. Okay, still dotting across from me because I want to try and make it as straight of a line as I possibly can. I'm adding as much paint to that as I can because I've got a long way that I want it to travel. And then I'm going to grab my pin that I just pulled right out of the eraser. That's no good. There we go. So I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to start to bring it down, bring down the paint. The longer it goes, I think the harder it is to keep it really, really straight. But that's okay, because you can always turn it around and grab, just move some more paint on this. So I'm not so much as creating with the paint and allowing the paint to create the shape. I am manipulating the paint into the shape that I want it to go into. Does that make sense? So I'm going to do another color here. I'm going to do the orange. These lids don't want to snap shut. These ones are weird ones because you actually pinch them to get them to open. And you got to give them an extra little push when you're closing them too. So I wanted to show you guys what a full one looks like because I don't know how much time we're going to have to get through all of them. I want to make sure I show you. So this next one I'm going to put out and down a little bit further. And I'm still trying to let as much paint as I can come off of the tool and onto the dot. So I'm leaving lots of paint behind. Okay. And now I'm going to go in with my pin again. So this way of doing swoops is much slower than just dropping and dragging it down, but there are benefits to both, right? That's the speed. This is, I can really control where the paint's going to go, and I can always go in and smooth it out if it doesn't look perfect. I can do that with the other swoops as well. And then I'm going to open up the green too here. How you doing, Audrey? Hi. You're a good girl. All right, and then the next one. Now this last one, I'm going to be very cognizant of where I'm putting it next to this guideline where this peak is, because the next set of swoops over here is going to be meeting in the middle, and I want to leave a little bit of space. So I'm going to grab the green, and I'm going to make sure that I don't let it go too far over. Right, and I don't need as much paint on this one because it's going to be a lot shorter. This took me a lot of practice to get comfortable with. You can use a toothpick too. Toothpicks can work well. The issue with toothpicks is that because they are wood, they are porous, so they're going to absorb some of the paint, and that could cause them to get a little squishy. Okay, so just keep that in mind, is that you want to be aware of potential squishiness of the toothpicks, but I used to use toothpicks all the time, and they work perfectly good. Toothpicks work really well for little tiny micro dots like I did with the little white ones too. Then you can have fun with them too. I've done some patterns where I put a little row of micro dots in between each swoop, and that looks really pretty. So you can play with this and just have a lot of fun with it. So then this one will go about here. Still letting the paint go in there. And back in we go. There we go. All right. You're most welcome, Jen. Let me know if you run into any questions and I'll do my absolute best to help you out, okay? All right, so so now that you've seen what a full set is gonna look like, and I've seen that too, Rex, that's a really good idea. And I've seen some people do that where they actually will do the base coat, then they will varnish their stone, and then they will paint on top of that, and that makes it easy to clear off any paint if you make a mistake or want to make any changes. I've seen people do that as well. It's something that I want to look into. I never did before because I didn't want any of the varnish to reflect from the back. But I think if you use a nice matte varnish, that could work really, really well. But lots and lots of options there. Oh, I got the hiccups. I'm so sorry, you guys. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and what I typically do is I don't usually do the whole set of swoops. I just wanted to make sure that you guys got to see one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do all of the blue ones and then go back and do the orange and then go back again and do the green. The reason I do that is that I find that when I'm just dropping paint on here, I don't have to clean my tool as often, but if I'm constantly switching colors, I do. So in my mind, it's a little less wasteful on paint, which I know is ironic considering I just moved an entire palette full of paint off to the side to dry out and get rid of. But that was my own mistake there. And that happens too. But again, that's why you don't need to put out a lot. The only time you want to really make sure you've got a lot of paint prepared is if you're custom mixing your own paints and your own colors. You want to make sure that you've got enough to make it through your entire project, right? And depending on how big your project is, or if you like the colors and you think you're going to want to use it again, finding some way to record how much of each different color you use when you're mixing new colors, all of that sort of stuff. Ooh, that would be beautiful, Jan. Oh, that would be really pretty. And there's so many beautiful stains out there too, eh? You could really have a lot of fun with that. I'm totally hooked on Mod Podge right now for my varnish, the matte varnish. Like I said, I really love the matte finish, and it's the Mod Podge is my favorite so far. There we go. Ooh. And then let's go. So I'm going to keep doing these blues. You see how this could be very meditative and relaxing, eh? The repetitiveness is good because you can kind of sink into it. And at the same time, it's not too repetitive that you get bored with it. It's like, okay, I'm going to get these ones done because then I can't wait to add the orange, or I can't wait to add that next level of detail, and just have fun with it. Pinterest is another great source for ideas. I have a whole board on my Pinterest board. I've got a Pinterest account created for Mandala Love Affair that you can go look at, but I haven't put any of my color inspirations on there. They're still on my personal board. I haven't migrated them over yet, but I will at some point because I think that's a great place to kind of house a bunch of color inspirations. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest looking at color combos, either at other people's pieces. If I see a technique that they've used that I really enjoy, I'll save that for sure. But I will also, there's tons of different like paint swatch color combo ideas on Pinterest. And whenever I see ones that I like, I go in there. And if I'm really stuck, or if I say, you know, hey, I really want to use this teal, but I don't know what other colors to put with it today, I'll always check out Pinterest and see what I can come up with. That's okay, Brianna. It's good to see ya. I'm glad you're able to come in. Some people are using the Mod Podge different safe, but it takes 72 hours to dry. Can you omit that type of Mod Podge if you use the multi-surface? Yes. So when I use the multi-surface, now here's the thing. You can do it if you are going to be baking it, or if you are willing to let the multi-surface paint, like if I'm painting on wood with multi-surface paint, I need to let it air cure for 21 days or I can bake it in the oven. So if you're doing a ceramic mug, then yes, you can omit that. Now, here's the thing to say about painting ceramics without putting a sealer or a Mod Podge or anything like that on it. I haven't tried the sealer on it yet, and I will at some point, but I've just been using the multi-surface acrylics. Now, the bottles of the multi-surface acrylics will tell you that they will cure top shelf dishwasher safe. The way I kind of liken it is if I took a paintbrush and covered the entire mug in a multi-surface paint, then yeah, I'd throw it in the top shelf of the dishwasher after I bake it. But these are really, really intricate designs and they're really, really delicate. The idea of throwing it in the dishwasher with such delicate designs scares the living daylights out of me, to be brutally honest with you. If you're doing dot mandalas and really fine, delicate designs, I still wouldn't put them in the dishwasher. I would always recommend top shelf, a gentle hand washing. Now, I have friends that I have made mugs for, and they have put them on the top shelf of the dishwasher, and they have been perfectly fine. I think it's my own paranoia, just because it is so delicate that it makes me a little bit nervous. That being said, if you're not being as gentle as you think you are when you're hand washing, there's always a risk with that stuff, right? I don't know if Mod Podge would make it so that you could just, scrub away and off you go. So I don't use a sealant for that. I hope that helps, Autumn. Thanks, Brianna. Have you been watching Buffy? Brianna just started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm a big Buffy fan, so I'm super excited to hear how she loves it, and I'm just so excited. Like, I'll get really, really excited when she gets a couple more seasons into it. Yeah. And there's the Angel spinoff too, eh, Brianna? Such a good show. Such a good show. So are you stuck only watching it, though, when Robert's home? When her boyfriend's home? So with the swoops, you're going to get used to how much paint you have to put down, how far you can pull it, how to pull that paint down. But it's all about practice. But there we go. That's it so far. How are we doing? Anybody having any questions? Anything I can do? Has the box set of it? Yeah, it's good. I used to have all the DVDs, and I actually got rid of them because I knew it was on Prime TV. But it's one of those ones where I would watch it all the time. Yeah, the Buffy movie was amazing. So completely different than the TV show. But it was definitely a classic. All right, so now I'm going back in. The benefit of doing all of one color all at once is that you're going to develop some muscle memory. You're going to start to automatically place them in the right spots. You're going to automatically put the right amount of paint on the tool. There's different ways that you can create that muscle memory so that you're creating that consistency in your design. Yeah, the Angel spinoff is phenomenal. I loved it. I'm a big fan of Angel, though, too. Like, I've always said that, with Fan Expo and Comic-Con, all of those different ones that are happening all over the place, I was like, one of these days I'm going to go to one, and Angel's going to be there, and I'm going to have to tell all of my friends to be ready, because that might be the day I go to jail. Every ounce of dignity and self-respect I have left will be right out the window if I got to meet that man in person. It would be embarrassing for anybody involved, and I really wouldn't even care. I'd be like, nope, this is happening. Brianna and I go to Fan Expo here in Toronto together. This would have been our third year going? Did I go with you last year? No, I think we went together 1 year, and then we were going to go together again this year because all the hobbits were going to be there, and it's a lifelong dream of mine to meet Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd, who played Merry and Pippin in the movies. Lifelong dream of mine. Like, they're just my absolute favorites. I love everything about the dynamic of just the two of them as human beings. I follow them on social media. I just can't get enough of them. And I had my ticket and everything bought to do the photo op at Fan Expo with them. And I was going to get to meet them. And then, of course, COVID happened, and that didn't end up working out. And I just kind of said to myself, that's okay. They weren't ready for me yet. We'll give them another year, and then they'll really, really be ready to meet me. I was devastated, though, when it all happened. I cried a little. Brienne and I are also keeping it on our list to go to a Supernatural convention one of these days. If you guys haven't watched Supernatural, oh, that's so good. So good. Yeah, so the original Buffy movie is old. Pee Wee Herman actually plays one of the vampires. It's really, really good. All right, here we go. I know, right? Stupid COVID. So many things that were supposed to happen that aren't happening. My original plan for this year, I was going to get rid of my apartment. I bought a truck, and I was going to, in the spring, last spring, I was going to buy a camper, and I was just going to start traveling all across Canada and the US. I was going to do like a 6-month road trip. And, well, that didn't happen. The world is ready for you. Oh, I hope so. And you know what? The people that aren't, that's okay. That's okay if they're not. The people who are ready for me will be ready for me. And someday, you mark my words, I am going to meet them. Someday. And I am someday going to do my road trip. But everything changes. And it changed because it had to, and it was supposed to. It means it wasn't the right time for me to do it. So it's a good thing that I didn't already go out and buy the camper before everything hit with COVID. You know, there's lots of benefits to the way that things happened, and I didn't know all of you guys then. Now I have all these people that I can go and visit when I do my road trip, and I think that's what the universe is waiting for me. They're like, nah, we got to get you some more people to go and visit while you're out there on the road. And now I've got reasons to go all over the place. There we go. Right? Buffy's amazing. Buffy's so snarky too, right? Like it's so, when you compare like Dawson's Creek to Buffy, like Dawson's Creek was overly smart sounding, right? It was great. It was a great, great, great show. But then you look at Buffy, I'm like, that's how I actually talked when I was a teenager. I felt like I was just so much more relatable. Yep, the universe knows exactly what it's doing. Take care, Axel. It was good to see you. I'm glad you were able to come and hang out for a bit. I hope you were able to take a little bit of a break and a breather, and I hope it helped relieve some stress for you. Oh, thank you, Cindy. It comes with practice. It's all about practice. I promise you that it won't take you as long as you think that it will take you to get super comfy with this stuff. Just got to keep playing with it. And remember to always be doing it because you enjoy it. Right? When you're doing it for the pure joy of it, that joy will show in your work, and it will make it easier for you to go back and practice again and again and again. You kind of, after a while, you just become one with the idea that it's all practice, all of it. Even once I'm quote unquote good, it's still all practice. It's practicing consistency once you've got some things down pat. Just have some fun with it. The ladybug in TikTok and had other plans. That's a good, totally, right? Exactly. There was so many reasons why I was not meant to be on the road yet. And pick up, yes, 100%. So I'm gonna stop and pick up Sharon. And then we'll zip down to Florida and pick up Jan. Maybe Barb will get Barb to fly here to meet me, and we'll come down and get Sharon, go down and get Jan, then go across and see Shannon and Jerry Lynn, and we'll hit up all of you guys and find out wherever we got to go to Vegas. We got all kinds of places we need to go. and it's going to be fun. Not erasing anymore. Yes, don't. Just keep going with it. The thing that you'll probably be surprised with is how much you like a piece that even when you were in the beginning stages of it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's awful, I should have fixed that, and oh, I don't like it. When you get to the end of a piece, you're probably going to have to go searching for a lot of those things that you thought were so glaringly obvious in the beginning. Keep going. It will allow you to see that even the pieces that you think you've made a bunch of mistakes in are still going to turn out beautiful. One thing to know too, you guys, I am going to be creating a Facebook group so we can start to share the pieces if we want to, of course. Nobody's forced to, ever. But if you want to share pieces that you're working on or share what you created during the tutorials, we're going to have a Facebook page. I'm going to work on that this week. I meant to do it this past week. Life kind of kicked my butt a little bit this past week. And so we are going to do a Facebook page where we'll be able to share some stuff. We'll be able to maybe do some challenges and ask questions and inspire each other and show off what we're working on. Barb needs a better broom to fly out that far. Yes, and Rex will have to get Rex too. Got all these people. Autumn, come and get you. Okay, come get everybody. Yes, you totally can. It's going to be a big camper. You can just lay down and sleep the whole way too, right? Colors are so bright. Mine have all dried dark. See, and that's what's happening with this purple, right? In the bottle and in the thing, it looks really, really bright, but this looks almost black. So that might be a transparency thing. It might be... It's usually a transparency thing. So with this purple, for example, it's not terribly opaque and it's drying really, really dark. Also remember, your paints will always dry darker than how they look in the bottle or in the paint pot. Always, always, always. So kind of have that as a rule of thumb. That's where a test canvas can come in really handy too, because then you can say, I want to use these paints, but I wonder how they're going to dry. You can put them on a test canvas and see how they dry to see if you need to alter them in any way, like mix in anything brighter, or if you need to pick different colors if they don't look quite right together. The test canvas can be really, really helpful that way. We can visit Fort Worth. Oh, we're going to go everywhere. It's going to be so fun. Yeah, we'll have a blast. So if anybody wants to join the Facebook group, please make sure that you keep an eye on my Facebook page. If you're not already following here on the Facebook page, I'll let you know on TikTok and Instagram too when that's up and running. But would love to have you. I figure it would be a really cool spot to kind of grow this community a little bit and share what we're working on and share our ideas and all of that sort of stuff. I think it'll be really, really fun. If you want a copy of this recording after the tutorial, after we're done here today, we've got about a little over about 15 minutes left, 10-15 minutes left. If you are looking for access to the recording of this, if you are not already a member of my Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Mandala Love Affair, and you can access all of my previous recordings as well as any upcoming ones that I do and put on there. It works out to about 4 tutorials a month that end up going up there, they will also be available to purchase the recording on my website in about 48 hours. So even if you're part of the Patreon, the tutorial won't be available until about 48 hours, so usually on the Monday. If I can get it up sooner, I will. But we'll go from there. That's why some people make swatches of all their colors. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And that's a really, really good point too, Sharon. So let's show what that looks like here. So I'm going to just put a white dot down here. Cindy, so let me just show you this. Okay. So first thing we're going to do, so we've got the purple that we already know dries really, really dark, right? So I'm going to do a really thin white dot. Okay, and I'm just going to put this aside for a couple of minutes. This is going to dry pretty quickly. So I'm just going to put that aside for a minute. So you could do a large dot like this in the white, And then we're going to come back and I'm going to put that dark purple on top of it. Thank you, Sharon, for that reminder. That's really important. Christina Lee, you see her do that an awful lot. She does the white base dots and then the other metallics or anything like that on top of it. It can really help to bring out the color when it's not competing with the black in the background. So we're just going to let that white one dry for a couple of minutes, and then before we go, I will show you what the purple looks like on top of the white, because that's definitely a really, really good option. Okay, good idea. Thanks, Sharon. Okay, let's open the purple, and I'll put the purple next to it, and then we'll do the purple on top of it. Not worried about the shape of this. This is just for, so see how, even while it's still wet, it looks like it's still going to dry kind of nice and bright, right? So we're going to let that dry for a minute. Let's keep doing these green swoops, and then we'll come back to that. All right. Yeah, and the swatches can be really, really helpful. There's a lot of people that will swatch out their colors as soon as they get them. And they'll have like a canvas that's just to show their colors, and they label them, and they do, this is the color on black, this is the color on white, and they can show how they they look a little bit differently. So it's really kind of cool that way. You can totally do that. And then you almost have just a catalog to go through, right? So when you're looking for colors, you can always start to pull them out. I saw someone do that once with popsicle sticks. They painted half the popsicle stick black, half the popsicle stick white, and then they put each of their colors on it. So then they could mix and match their popsicle sticks when they were trying to put colors together for a piece. I thought that was a really, really cool idea too. The only reason I haven't done that stuff is because I'm not patient enough to sit and work on that instead of working on a mandala. I'm like, yeah, I could do that, or I could paint another mandala in the same amount of time. So let's just do that. But it's definitely something that I could see myself doing in the future, because I feel like it would be incredibly satisfying to have that. All right. Any questions that are coming up for you guys as we're getting closer to the end of this tutorial? If there's any questions that you have, please let me know. If you want to get the recording individually, it'll be available in 48 hours on my website for $5, or there's the Patreon if you want to just access all of the previous tutorials. That's the monthly subscription for anybody who's not familiar with Patreon. I'm going to be putting up a schedule tomorrow for my live schedule for the week, the upcoming week. There is a very slight possibility that I may have to change up Monday. Normally on Sundays I go to help my parents with some stuff, but we're supposed to get a bit of weather, so I'm not sure if that's going to work out tomorrow or not, or if I'm going to have to wait and do their stuff on the Monday. I'm going to take a look at the Weather Channel after and take a look, but the schedule for the rest of the week will be on there. These tutorials are happening every Saturday though. And for the next couple of weeks, we're going to keep doing a lot of the basics. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about top dots. We're going to talk about different options of how to put together a piece and the different design elements that we can see out there. We're going to kind of constantly be doing a review of the basics, and then how can you kind of take those things to the next level when you're ready. Wind's not too bad right now. I'm just looking outside. It's still strong enough. Like, everything's moving, that's for sure. The tall pines are really swaying. Really, really swaying. No, my dad is still in the hospital. We're waiting for him to get into a nursing home, and between us, we're kind of hoping that he stays where he is right now. He's in an area of the hospital where he's very well taken care of, and he likes the people very much. And and he's comfortable there. So if he never moves into a home, as far as I'm concerned, if he spent the rest of his life where he is now, then I'd be totally okay with that. Yeah, he's okay. For the most part, he likes it. He likes all of his nurses and everything. He has days when the delusions are worse than others, and those are tough. Those are tough ones. It's tough, right? Like, it's been really hard lately because my mom and dad's anniversary was on February 1st. It's the first time in 47 years they haven't been together on their anniversary. First Christmas they haven't been together. My mom's birthday's coming up on February 11th. My dad's birthday's coming up on March the 20th. There's a lot of firsts in a very short amount of time that are really tough and emotional. That's when I'm even more grateful that I have this painting, right? I have my ability to come in and kind of shut off the world. No, we haven't been allowed to see him since the beginning of December, which is really tough. They have the ability to do Skype, and my first question to that was, who the hell uses Skype anymore? Right? Like, I don't even know how to set that up because nobody's used it for 10 years. But it's been pretty difficult, so we haven't done that yet. I'm okay with not having to teach my mom how to do it because that was going to be a little painful. But at the same time, it would be nice if we could. But I don't know, depending on his mindset, I don't know if it would be better or worse than how it is now. I don't think any of them are going to be, ideal, any of the options. I'm hoping that things start to open back up soon so that we can go and get to see him. It's really hard. Oh, thank you, Rex. I really appreciate that very much. It's heavy. It's a lot. It has definitely been a lot. And it's hard, because she's feeling things that I'm not feeling. I've been watching what's been happening over the past 5 years and watching his condition change and watching her health and condition change. And this is going to sound more cold than I mean it to, but I've been starting to mentally prepare myself for this, right? Because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when and who and all of that sort of stuff. So I've been trying to kind of prepare myself and just really focusing on what can I control, right? I can't control the inevitability of it all. What I can control is making sure that the most important thing that I can do for either of them is make sure they know that I love them, right? Okay, you guys, so this has a little bit of everything in it, right? So we did our swoops, we did our circles, we did our walking dots. So this is something that you can continue to practice. I could put another large dot here and do some more petals. I could use this guideline and create more of these circles around here and then keep working my way outwards. It's completely up to you how you want to proceed with this, but if you're alternating back and forth between those different options, then that can be a really, really good way to kind of keep progressing the design forward. And I will do that quite often too. I will do just alternating them all back and forth, right? Thank you, Jan. I think it looks kind of pretty, eh? I can't say that I'm in love with the color combos, but I certainly don't dislike them. I think they have some potential, and I'm going to keep this one aside to do some top dots on them at a later date, and I think that could be really, really fun. So let me I'm just going to find my heat gun, you guys, because what I want to do is I want to dry that white paint and show you. And we'll do the purple dot on top of the white dot to see on that test canvas. Thanks, Brianna. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me again today. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I I think it's been really fun. I've liked painting on this little heart too. It's been really cute. It's been a nice little break. I've been doing a lot of mugs and I got a lot more to go. So, okay, noise warning here. I'm going to turn my heat gun onto this test canvas just to try and dry the paint a little bit. I wouldn't normally recommend doing this because it could crack the paint very easily, but because we're doing this just to show like the difference and for the color. Okay, and that's dry enough to accomplish what we need to accomplish here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab that same purple. Let me scroll back and see here. Aw, thank you, Cindy. Thanks, Rex. Thanks, Sharon. Oh, I'm so glad, Janice. Oh, you're most welcome, you guys. I'm sending you so much love right back. So Audrey was not having that little crown. No, she wasn't, right? It was pretty cute. Also, what kind of cake was it? It was a marble McCain Deep and Delicious cake. The marble's my favorite. Yeah, I think back to basics. You know, when you do that, when you get comfortable with the basics, that's the big key, right? Okay, so I'm going to put a purple dot on top of the white here. Oops. So I could do it that way, and then let's dry it and just see what it looks like dry. Again, I would never recommend using a heat gun. Noise warning, guys. I would never recommend using a heat gun to dry paint quicker, but this for the demonstration purposes only. Drying it too fast could cause it to crack. Well, it's still drying really dark even on top of that one, so it might just be the paint, right? But we could easily mix some fluorescent paint or some other colors in there, and that could really help too. But putting the white in the back is always a good option to help your color stand out a little bit more. Can you please talk for another 30 minutes? I'm not ready for my dogs to be awake. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no. Oh, no, not the puppies. Oh, if I was there, I would just snuggle them for you, and then you could still have a break. Your heat gun mutilated that first purple dot. I know, right? Look at it. Yeah, this is why we don't use a heat gun. And look at that one. Looks like an old piece of chewing gum stuck on top of something. But for the idea of the color, it's still drying a little dark. But this is a really good test though, right? This is a great way to test and see, is it the paint consistency or is it the paint color? This is definitely the paint color, right? It's just really dark. Still stands out better on top of the white than it does on the black. But still, yeah, it definitely looks brighter on top of the white for sure. But I think that it gives a really good indication of, you know, the paints. And then again, we can look at different ways that we can add other colors to it to brighten it up. I think some hot pink with that purple would be really, really cool, and would just really, really pop. So that's a really good option for top dots. If I mix some of that purple with some nice hot pink, that could create some really cool top dots. So yeah, and it's a great way to test your paints, right? Testing it on white versus on black. Again, it's where those color swatches could really come in handy too, right? So anybody have any other questions? Does it in yours too, Cindy? I think there's some of those colors that just always do, like there's certain colors that always tend to be a little bit waterier. I find reds are almost always really watery, and they can dry a little more translucent than others. Or even a little darker than others. It's interesting once you start to kind of get used to your paints and what the colors do and what the consistencies are like, right? And your paint pours. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, totally. Yeah, then you know all about mixing colors, right? And how they can mix together and how they can turn really muddy sometimes, or they can go really, really nice and bright and beautiful. So I hope this was helpful, you guys. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. Keep your eyes peeled as well later this week for the Facebook group, and keep an eye on TikTok tomorrow. I will post my live schedule for the week. and we'll get to hang out a little bit more again later this week. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. I really, really appreciate you spending all this time with me, and I'm grateful for every single one of you. Thank you for all of the love. Please. Oh, I'm so glad, Em. That's wonderful. I'm so glad you enjoyed. I hope we'll see you again. You're stuck with us now. Hope you know that. But thank you, everybody. I'm so glad that you were here. Thank you for coming and hanging out, and we'll look forward to seeing you again really soon. I'm sending you all lots and lots of love. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jan. Bye, guys. Love you so much. Take care. Bye. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye, guys. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk soon.